fun. Let's have some more fun with Foucault. That's what I'm going to title this class next semester. Fun with Foucault. All right. It's fabulous to see all of you. And let's go ahead and pick up where we left off on Thursday and finish the introductory remarks as we transition into Foucault and begin the formal discussion of chapter 1. And so we ended on Thursday at a really critical place. And I say critical because if you kind of master where we've been the last two lectures and where we left off on Thursday, if you master that information, I guess, is what not for lack of a better word, and then you understand the turn we're going to make tonight, you're on your way to mastering Foucault. This is the key. All right. So again, just to set up where we're going, Foucault is a postmodernist. He is suspicious about the existence of some form of objective truth. He is concerned about the consequences or the effects to our minds, our bodies, and our politics that result from our belief in and commitment to some metaphysical or moral system of thought. And he argues that, one, there's obviously no objective self, there's no truth self, there's no objectivity, right? And two, that whatever the self is, whatever subjectivity is, it's constructed primarily through language, functioning as a human invention and an assertion of power. So he's a postmodernist. He's picking up Nietzsche's project and he's perfecting it. And Foucault is going to do, he's going to do to the Enlightenment what Nietzsche did to Platonic political philosophy and New Testament Christianity. He's going to analyze it. He's going to critique it. He's going to illuminate to us and for us that we may not be who we think we are, and things may not be the way we think they are. He's going to tell us an alternative story about the Enlightenment and who we are. That's the project. Now, before we can talk about Foucault's project, we're going to start that tonight, technically. We had to take, and I'm sorry it took so long, but it's just such a critical part of the argument. We had, before we can even get to disciplinary power or what Foucault thinks is going on, we had to at least understand, even in a superficial way, but in a structured way, what the hell the Enlightenment is, generally. And so we talked about the three areas of the Enlightenment. There's a philosophical part of the Enlightenment. There's a normative, social, medical, behavioral, physical sciences part of the Enlightenment, and there's a political part of the Enlightenment. Okay, we talked about that. And then, this is where we were last week. We said, kind of emerging from the three areas of the Enlightenment are kind of three strategies and techniques that emerge out of the Enlightenment. Three strategies and techniques that emerge out of the Enlightenment that we see everywhere. Right? In fact, they're so obvious and common to us. They're so much a part of the Enlightenment paradigm of reality that we see them everywhere and we've never even thought about them because they're so common. The Enlightenment was so successful in this sort of mobilization of these three strategies and techniques that we don't even see them as that. They're just so common. They're ubiquitous. They're everywhere. And the first one was the total control and routinization of space and time. And we talked a lot about what that was, give examples of that. And then the second one, right, was literally the creation of architectural space, right? The designing of buildings, the creating of architectural space, designed to maximize the observation of the people inside of those spaces. So prisons and factories and schools and daycares and large bureaucracies and corporate offices, they all look the same. They're in a weird way, they're architecturally designed to maximize the observation of the people that are in them, the prisoners, the students, the sick people, right? The factory workers, the bureaucrats, the people at their desk at Facebook, at their cubicle, right? And then this is also kind of relevant. We kind of illuminated this idea, well, why are these spaces constructed that way? Okay, well, they're designed to maximize observation of the people in them. And then two, because of that process, because of a lifelong experience and exposure to this awareness that you're always being watched, to induce in the subject, to induce in the child, to induce in the prisoner, to induce in the factory worker, to induce in the student, to induce in the patient in the hospital, a kind of internalization, this awareness, this deep internalization that one is always being watched. And the deeper that goes, right, the more the person who is internalizing this becomes kind of self-disciplined, right? I know that at any given time, I'm sort of vulnerable to surveillance or being watched, and so I'm just gonna be good. I just assume I'm being watched, and so I'm just gonna be good. I start to discipline and regulate my own behavior, right? And then the third strategy, again, ubiquitous and common, I just handed back all your midterms, was in the Enlightenment, the creation and deployment of an almost infinite series of exams, right? And literally exams that begin in the moment you're born. They examine your blood, and they examine your weight, and they examine your gender, and the exam. And the exams that, like I said, in a funny way, Professor Dungy will be dead, completely dead, and some medical student's gonna be still examining me, trying to figure out, why I died. I would have been happy to tell them if they would have asked me while I was still alive. I drank too much whiskey. All right, but they want to cut me up anyways. So these exams, and these exams, they span every part of life, right? Every part of life. Okay, now, even if, and this is where we left off on Thursday, and here's the moment where we start to move into Foucault. Well, first of all, we look at the Enlightenment, the philosophical, the medical sciences, and the political. We look at all of those things as kind of objectively true and good for us. We see those three strategies everywhere, and they seem normal. Not only do they seem good and normal and efficient, good for us, they're normal. In fact, not only are they normal and ubiquitous, they're good. Of course, we control space and time. We got our watches and our clocks and our schedules, and we organize space, and people are self-disciplined, and they're behaving. Of course, we examine. We want to make sure people are healthy, and that they're normal, and that they're developing properly, and they're not depressed, and that they don't have diseases. We got to examine everything. It's all normal. It's us, and we think it's true and good. That's us. That's the story of us. All right. So we needed to understand us, because that's what Foucault is going to analyze. All right. Foucault is going to do to the Enlightenment what Nietzsche did to Platonic moral philosophy and New Testament Christian theology. All right. That's the project. Okay, So now let's move into Foucault. Now, here's the hook. Kind of a funny way to put it, but here's the movement. If you get this movement mentally, intellectually, or however you want to think about it, if you get this movement, you own Foucault. Okay? So the question now becomes, as we introduce Foucault, as we start to read Foucault, what happens if we apply, as Foucault does, what happens if we apply a postmodern, a Nietzschean, or a nominalist critique? What if we apply, even just for the sake of argument, just to have fun, what if we apply a postmodern critique or a postmodern analytic or a postmodern analysis or a postmodern interrogation, all these fun words, right? What if we apply a postmodern analytic to not only the Enlightenment in general, to the philosophical part of the Enlightenment, to the normative, social, behavioral, and medical sciences part of the Enlightenment, to the political side of the Enlightenment? And what if we apply a postmodern analytic to the three strategies? What if we look at the three areas of the Enlightenment and those three strategies? What if we look at those things and interpret those things from a postmodern point of view? What happens? What happens? Here is the essential move. What happens if we analyze the Enlightenment from a Nietzschean and a postmodern perspective? What if we gaze? Foucault loved that word, the gaze, the postmodern gaze, right? A kind of suspicion, a gaze, right? What if we gaze at or interpret the Enlightenment paradigm from a postmodern point of view? All right. So now just to loop back quickly where we just started. Okay, so what does that mean? What does that mean to look at the Enlightenment, at the philosophical claims that we're objectively free, morally equal, deeply individualistic, bearers of natural rights, that we occupy a kind of normative social and behavioral and medical scientific space where we're examining everything and acquiring knowledge to learn how it works so we can fix things, right? What if we kind of apply a postmodern gaze at the whole political reality that we've constructed these democracies, right? And they're superior to authoritarian regimes. What if we suspend our assumption that all of those ideas are in some way objectively true and good for us? What if we suspend them? What if we suspend their objectivity, suspend the status that we grant to them of some kind of truth? And what if we then look at the three strategies of routinization and control of space and time? The creation of these architectural spaces to observe, and the inducing and the people observed of these consciousnesses that are aware that they're always fucking being observed. And this creation and the deployment of a lifelong series of examinations designed to diagnose and assess you. What if we look at all of that from a postmodern point of view? What happens? Well, first, what happens is we then just begin to start, we say, okay, let's start with this idea that the Enlightenment paradigm is not a kind of objective system of thought. It's in fact yet another, what Nietzsche would call a poem, what the postmoderns will call a discourse. Right? It's a poem. right? Even from a general, we don't even have to be deep in postmodernism, right? Just the first thing we kind of think about is, oh, well, then the Enlightenment isn't this sort of system of knowledge that's grounded or connected to some objective truth, and that's good for us, right? It turns out to be a poem. And therefore, another kind of human invention that is also simultaneously a what? An assertion of what? Power. Beautiful, Jacob. Right? And not only is it a kind of yet another moment of this human invention, operating as an exercise of power, but one that is incredibly kind of unstable and contested and agonistic, constantly undergoing, it's contingent, it's constantly undergoing change. All right. So the first thing that happens is we look at the Enlightenment as a discourse, as a poem. Now, I'm going to say this later when we get deeper into chapter 1, but I want to raise this issue here because this is kind of a critical moment. From a postmodern point of view, the Enlightenment can still be a poem, even if the people who created it didn't think it was. This is important. I'm going to repeat this later, and I don't want to confuse you, so I'm sorry if I kind of just fucked up your mind a little bit there. I'm sorry, but it's kind of it's a fascinating and important part of Foucault's analysis of the Enlightenment, right? And it makes sense, right? Because Foucault is going to provide, right? Foucault is going to provide a postmodern analysis of the Enlightenment. He's going to call it a poem. He's going to argue that we've been constructed through these ideas, right? Even though we don't know it. We in fact, we think the Enlightenment is what? It's true. I think it's good for us. We'd never read Nietzsche. We'd never read Foucault. This is, right? All of this is operating, and we think it's objectively true and good for us. Again, more on that later. So the first thing we see is that the Enlightenment is what postmoderns will call a discourse. It's a narrative. It's a discourse. What Nietzsche would call a poem. It's a poem of a poem of a poem of a poem. The Enlightenment is just the latest iteration of these historical poems, right, that have fallen away and emerged, In fact, in many ways, we're at the end of the Enlightenment discourse. We're watching the end of, from a postmodern point of view, and even from a more objective view, a whole kind of system of thoughts, ending. Something new is coming. Virtual reality, artificial intelligence, human technology, fusion, Elon Musk, Neuralink, something fucking new is coming. Okay. All right. So the first thing we do is we look at this as a kind of poem. It's a poem. It's a kind of human invention. It's an assertion of power, and it's very contingent. And it kind of emerged to replace a kind of New Testament Christian kind of poem that was before that. And New Testament Christianity poem had emerged to replace Roman humanism and Greek philosophy. Right? On a Nietzschean kind of argument. All right. So the Enlightenment is a discourse. It's a poem. It's a narrative. It's a human invention. It's an assertion of power. It's wildly contingent. Okay. Now, in addition to that, if we apply a sort of postmodern analysis to the three strategies: routinization and control, routinization of space and time, architecture designed to maximize surveillance, internalize that in the subjects so they become self-disciplined, and the creation deployment of this infinite field of examinations. If we apply a postmodern analysis to those three techniques and strategies, we get what Foucault calls disciplinary power. And here's the origin of Foucault's famous term, disciplinary power. Okay? Using a Nietzschean or a postmodern analysis, right? Applying a postmodern analysis to the three strategies and techniques that emerged from the Enlightenment: the total control of root space and time, emergence of architectural systems to maximize observation, creation, deployment of exams. If you apply postmodern or nominalist analysis to those three strategies, you get what Foucault calls disciplinary power. That's what Foucault means by disciplinary power. What and so what is disciplinary power? Right? And this is what made Foucault famous. What is disciplinary power? Disciplinary power is a kind of redescription. It's a kind of a redescription of power that is both linguistic and possesses a set of ideas and technologies. Right? So from a postmodern point of view, the three techniques and strategies that we see everywhere, they are literally ubiquitous. And I love that word, ubiquitous. They're everywhere. And because they're everywhere, they're so part of the conceptual and the material landscape, we don't even see them. Of course, space and time is totally controlled and routinized. Of course. Of course, we build spaces to watch children and to watch prisoners because we want to educate the kids, or we want to rehabilitate the prisoners, or we want the factory workers to be efficient, or we want the bureaucracy workers in their cubicles to be efficient. Of course we do that. Of course. It's good. And of course we're examining everything. Of course I'm getting tested for my blood tests when I'm a baby, and I'm getting my driver's test, and I'm getting my political science 471 midterms, and my health tests, and my psychology tests. Of course. It's us, it's the Enlightenment. It's true. It's true that we do that. It's good that we do that. All right, so pause. Let's just pause. Let's just pause. Okay, what if we suspend our assumption? What if we suspend our belief, our knee-jerk belief, because we've been raised in this system to think these things? What if we just suspend our belief that these things are true and good? What if we look at the emergence of this strategy/technique, the control and routinization of space and time, the creation of architectural spaces to maximize observation, and then to induce in the people in those fucking places the internalized self-awareness that one is always being watched even when he or she isn't being watched, so they fucking behave all the time. And what if we look at the creation and deployment of these exams from a postmodern point of view? What if we see him as a kind of human invention and assertion of power? Okay, so, all right. Okay. All right. That is disciplinary power. And what's really kind of important and in a weird way fascinating about this is that Foucault hasn't invented a new kind of power. Foucault didn't invent that. Right? He hasn't discovered a fourth dimension or a sixth element of power. Foucault didn't invent this. All of those things were already what? They're already here. They're already everywhere. So Foucault didn't invent, postmodernists didn't invent the total control and routinization of space and time. Postmodernists didn't invent the creation of architectural spaces to maximize surveillance and then induce in people this awareness they're always being watched. They didn't invent that. They didn't discover that. It's already here. They didn't invent and discover this creation and the deployment of these infinite series of exams that kind of define and classify and assess. Right? It's all here. But what they did is look at those things from a different point of view. What they did is look at each of those strategies from a different point of view. And what is that different point of view? That they suspend, Foucault suspends his assumption that those three strategies are somehow connected to some truth and that they're somehow good for us. Well, what the fuck happens, pardon my language, if we suspend our assumption that those strategies are somehow connected or correlated with some objective truth, some projective truth, and that they're somehow good for us? What happens if we do that? Oh, fuck. Well, okay, well, now we really see them as human inventions and assertions of power. Designed to do what? Designed to do what? To construct certain types of subjectivities, to construct, to build, to make, to fabricate, to construct, to make certain types of people who think and act and operate in certain specific types of ways. Disciplinary power is what you get if you apply a postmodern or a Nietzschean analysis to the three strategies and techniques that emerge from the Enlightenment. Right? So these things are actually forms of power. These strategies are actually forms of power. The language and the idea and the material associations associated with each of the three strategies are actually kind of mechanisms of power. They're not objectively true or accurate or correlative things that are good for us. They're operations of power. They are linguistic, conceptual, and material examples of a kind of power. The Enlightenment discourse as a kind of poem, as a kind of power. And what the hell is it doing? What is it doing? It's fabricating you. It's constructing your consciousness. You are. Nick Dungy is. You are. The effect of this power, of this discourse. The Enlightenment paradigm and these three strategies have worked together to fabricate, to construct your personality, your identity, your subjectivity. You are not something objectively real. You're not something objectively free. You're not something objectively equal in some grand philosophical sense. You may be individualistic, but not in some deep objective way. You certainly don't possess natural rights. All of these tests, they're not designed to make you healthy. I mean, they are theoretically, well, that's what they tell you. And by the way, that's what they thought they were doing. Nothing conspiratorial about this, by the way. More on that later. But what are they doing? They're constructing subjectivity, or what we want to call identity, or what we want to call personality. And by the way, it's not just constructing subjectivity by whoever the hell Nick Dungy is when he shows up and I speak and you hear me and you recognize me as a kind of concert of ideas and gender relations and social societal values, but also the body. As Judith Butler, famous feminist postmodernist, body is a construction. Sexuality is a construction. Gender is a kind of construction. It's a construction. The body. What are the effects of our minds, bodies, and politics on these ideas we think are true and that are good for us? Well, they're not true and they may not be good for us, but they do construct us. They have constructed us, and this is a construction. Nick Dungy's real, but he's not true. How can Nick Dungy be real and not true? Because Nick Dungy's been constructed. Constructed by what? Disciplinary power. A kind of series of ideas and strategies that Nick Dungy at one point thought were objectively true and good for him, only come to find out that, well, from a certain other point of view, from a postmodern gaze, gesturing to a kind of suspicion about an objective truth, wondering about what the effects are. Well, the effects are that I've been created, I've been fabricated, I've been constructed, I've been made, whatever synonym you want to use. So what does disciplinary power do? It constructs subjectivity. And it constructs subjects to be in a certain way. In fact, it works perfectly. If you think about the three strategies, not as ideas or processes that are somehow correlated with truth and good for you, if you just suspend that for a minute, and you look at those strategies from a postmodern point of view, right, and pour yourself some whiskey and you just kind of calm down and you think, fuck, all right, you're right. Who am I? Oh man, my space and time. It's totally organized and routinized down to every fucking second on my schedule. My study time, my date time, my work time, my gym time, my walking with the lover time, and what else? Yeah, from as long as I can remember, I've been in these architectural spaces. I've been in hospitals, in elementary schools, in high schools, and I've been in universities, and I've worked in places and everywhere I went, I was in a space that was designed to maximize the watching of me. Oh, God, that's right. Holy shit. And what's been the result of that? I've internalized this so fucking deeply that the boss doesn't need to watch me anymore. I watch myself. And fucking self, and that's what being self-disciplined is. And Jesus fuck, for all these years I've been fucking celebrating it. And from the moment I've born to the moment I die, they're examining me and they're taking these tests. And what are they actually doing? Well, they're writing my story. They're writing the narrative of Nick Dungy. They're constructing Nick Dungy in a kind of narrative, right? Because subjectivity is not an objectively real thing. It's a narrative. It's a text. And what is that text? Oh, well, when Nick Dungy was born, he was 12 pounds and whatever Caucasian things are and male gendered things are, and he had jaundice and an irregular heartbeat, and then these were his parents, and they were working class fucking people, and this is the language he spoke, and then they started dressing him like, narrative. So if you look at these strategies from a postmodern point of view, you get to, that's what disciplinary power is. When Foucault talks about disciplinary power, he talks about the way these three strategies are operating simultaneously, reinforcing each other as a system of power that is both linguistic, conceptual, and material. And it's constructing subjectivity. You are the effects of disciplinary power. In fact, your consciousness, what you call yourself, is actually the effects, the phenomenal effects of disciplinary power. You're constructed. And by virtue of the kind of subjectivities it constructs, because we don't know we've been constructed, because we think the ideas are true and good for us, not only are we the effects in the constructions of this power, but because we don't know it and we think it's good for us, it's true and good for us, we are also its vehicles. And this is what one of Foucault's most famous lines is. Subjectivity is the effect and the vehicle of power. It's constructed, opened up, made meaningful, functional by power, in this case, the Enlightenment discourse. And specifically, these three strategies and technologies operating simultaneously and interdependently from the moment you're born to the moment you die, as you, because you are it. There's nothing magical behind that. It's not one of these onion, you just peel back the layers, you get to the secret true self. No, this is you. This is us. It fabricates, constructs subjectivity. And because of the kind of subjectivity it constructs, right, and this is wild, it constructs a subjectivity that doesn't know it's constructed. Right? Right? Because we taught you, you're political scientists. We've raised you in institutions and intellectual institutions and medical and scientific institutions, and I've told you all this shit is what? Best as we can know, kind of true. Right? And not only kind of true, but good for you and good for everybody. So we give you these political science degrees, and you're all jacked up on this truth horse, right? And then you're going to go out and you're going to fix shit. So disciplinary power constructs subjectivities who don't know they're constructed. And because they don't know they're constructed, become the vehicles for the transmission of disciplinary power going forward. And that's what Foucault means, and one of the most famous sort of slogans. Subjectivity, personality, identity, whatever you want to call it, is both the object, it's both the effect of power and the vehicle of power. For Foucault, another one version of these. And we'll see this when we get to part 3, right? Is another playful way of putting this. For Foucault, disciplinary power constructs subjects who are both simultaneously as the structure of consciousness, who are both prisoners in and guards over their own mind. That's what disciplinary power is. It is what you get if you apply a postmodern analysis to the 3 strategies that emerge from the Enlightenment. Now, what else does it do? Okay, so it produces certain kinds of subjects, personalities, identities, however you want, whatever word works for you. Right? Because again, cornerstone of all postmodern analysis, is there an objectively true self? No. No. One, because postmodernists are suspicious about the existence of a truth, understood as Plato's idea or some type of metaphysical theology, God, or now in the Enlightenment scientific way, some fact, right? They're suspicious of those things. And why are they suspicious of those things? Because they don't think language corresponds to anything out there. They think that in and of itself, the cosmos and existential life doesn't have any meaning, right? It's real, but it doesn't have meaning, okay? Right? So meaning is a what? Meaning's a human invention. Primarily expressed through what? Language. Well, language is what? A human invention, because there is no objective meaning. There's no true word out there. There's no true concept out there. Okay, so it's an invention. It's an invention that gives meaning to real things, but don't have words, or don't have meanings, or don't have values. Okay. Well, then, okay, it's an invention, and it's giving meaning, and it's giving value, then it has to simultaneously be an assertion of power. That's right. Because as Nietzsche famously said, the origin of language and meaning is this is this is this is this. I named it. Okay. All right. So then apply that to you. How did you become you? Well, there's no objectively true self, right? And so, person has subjectivity, how we conceive of who we are, the very structure of our consciousness. What we understand the body, our gender, our sexuality, our race, right? What we conceive of the value and the purpose and what we do, it's all construction. It's the effect of a kind of power. And in this wild way, it's a kind of disciplinary power that constructs subjects who don't know they're constructed. Constructs subjects who think actually the opposite, who think they're not constructed, that they are in fact objectively free, objectively morally equal, objectively deeply individualistic, objectively bearers of natural rights, who can objectively be healthy or sick, normal or deviant, and who objectively live in liberal democracies as opposed to authoritarian shitholes. So it constructs people who don't know they're constructed. In fact, quite the opposite. They think they're objectively real, and all the knowledge they possess and the practices they've internalized are somehow normally good for them and the society in which they operate. So subjectivity for Foucault is both the object and the vehicle of disciplinary power. And there's no getting outside, because there's no getting outside the language.
Professor?
Yep.
Veer off topic too much. Just, you could say kind of, actually, I don't think you can answer this with a yes or no, but could you say in a way that Enlightenment philosophy makes Platonic philosophy a little bit more efficient by, in a way, because we are the prisoners and the guards, it's kind of combining the bronze and silver classes?
Oh, okay. So now I got to pour some whiskey, and we've got to get into some wild shit. So not possible to answer really in a way that justifies the question. So let me just say the question's great, and the answer is yes. Okay? And again, I don't want to drift, because I don't want to confuse anybody or lose where we are. But let me just say, and if you're out there and you haven't had 411 with me, just don't listen to this. It is from a certain point of view, I have no problem saying that the Enlightenment, as the Enlightenment understands itself, is a kind of perfection of Platonic metaphysics in terms of the organization of the mind, what Plato called the soul, and the city. Absolutely. But again, that's a half a bottle of whiskey and 3 or 4 day conversation. Okay? All right. Now let's get back, because we still got some important things to do. All right. So we know what disciplinary power is. Disciplinary power is what you get if you apply a postmodern analysis to the 3 strategies of the Enlightenment. Total control, routinization of space and time. Creation of architectural spaces designed to maximize observation of the people in it, and to induce in those people the awareness that they're always being watched, even when they're not. And 3, the creation of these almost infinite series of examinations that end up naming, defining, categorizing, and assessing, diagnosing. What's all that doing? It's constructing subjectivities who don't know they're constructed. And therefore, subjectivity is the object and the vehicle of power. Okay. Now, I keep saying it constructs certain kinds of subjectivities. All right. What kinds? Well, generally, subjectivities that don't know they're constructed. Okay. But can you be more specific? Absolutely. Disciplinary power is designed to construct, fabricate, create subjectivities that are economically efficient, productive, right? The whole machinery of the Enlightenment, from a disciplinary power point of view, is to produce subjects that are, because they control their time and space, because they're self-disciplined, because they want to take exams and satisfy the system, are economically totally efficient, they're productive. You have aptitude, you have skills, you're efficient. You go produce wealth for yourself, but for the society, produce wealth. You're economically efficient. Now, again, right? Even that is something we valorize, right? If we had never read any Nietzsche or we had never read any Foucault, and I said to you in a totally Enlightenment way, as the Enlightenment wants to understand itself, I said, this is a society that trains people or gives people knowledge and trains them to be economically efficient. We'd say, fuck yeah, that's right. That's what we do. Damn straight. We work hard. Are you kidding me? I've been grinding away since I was in elementary school. I was such a good kid in the 4th grade. Man, I was so on time. I had 1,000 little of those fucking gold stars they put on your desk to fucking, right? Oh, fuck yeah. I was a 40 gold star 4th grader, man. And yeah, I got a 4.0 GPA and I worked my way through college, and now I'm economically efficient. I'm producing wealth. We'd say, fuck, that's fabulous. Because we think it's true and good for us, right? Okay. So it produces people who are who work and who are efficient. Right? And by the way, when we get deeper into this, we're going to see in some ways why there was a kind of historical and material necessity to this, right? And last week we were riffing on this idea that what the Enlightenment does is turn peasants into lawyers, right? The Enlightenment turns peasants into doctors, peasants into stockbrokers, peasants into engineers, peasants into coders, Microsoft coders, right? And even that story from the normal way the Enlightenment likes to see itself is a great story. We say, yeah, even CSUN, that's what CSUN is. CSUN exists. Literally, CSUN exists as one of the great Enlightenment educational and social experiments that was created to educate the children of peasants. Literally. And I don't even mean that in a snarky way. God, I'm probably going to lose my job for saying that, right? Because now it's all you can't fucking say. I don't even mean it as a snarky thing. That's its fucking role. It's designed as a great Enlightenment social and educational project to take all the millions and millions and millions of children, of people who were working class, who didn't have access to university education. The whole damn university is only 60 years old. 80 years ago, none of you were educated. 80 years ago, I wasn't educated. My father killed people for a living. He was in the mafia. Spent almost 15 years in the Illinois State Penitentiary for trying to fucking kill somebody. Died, 53. Mom had a high school education, raised 2 kids on total welfare. She worked in a pawn shop. My mom worked in a fucking pawn shop before it was cool. Now it's fucking cool. We have shows on fucking History Channel about pawn dealers and shit. Now it's cool. My mom worked in a pawn shop in the 70s when it wasn't fucking cool. And the great Enlightenment institutions raised the fucking child of killers and peasants to become a professor. Woohoo! Right? Okay. Now, again, we'll see his material historical reasons for why this was, even when we tell the story normally. But we can even tell the story from a postmodern point of view. All right? So it constructs people who are economically efficient. It also, in a way, constructs people who are politically docile, right? And I mean politically docile in the sense, not that you don't have opinions about politics, or not that you don't protest. Obviously, you protest and people have opinions and they argue about it. But when Foucault uses the word or the term politically docile, he means people who are obedient at the end of the day, right? Disciplinary power produces people who are obedient, right? And in fact, there's even a hat that says obey, right? And it's a joke, and the joke's on us, right? It's a hat, right? It was that artist that made that hat saying obey, right? Disciplinary power produces subjects who are economically efficient, who are on time, work hard, efficient, produce wealth, and who obey, right? They're just self-disciplined in this broader sense, right? And again, not just self-discipline in the fact that I show up to work on time and I get my homework done. That's all part of it, to be sure. But kind of politically self-disciplined, right? I mean, think about the phenomenon, right? There's, and I know there's all this debate about police and police and justice, and that's all true. But aside from all of that, one of the most fascinating things about the Enlightenment, right, and disciplinary powers are obsessed with this, right? You think about it, right? There are like 12 million people in LA. There are like 12 million people in the greater LA metropolitan area. Right, which now, to be sure, it's not condensed in any sense. It's pretty sprawled out. That's true, but still, fucking 12 million. It's a mega city. LA's a mega city. It's a metropolitan area with more than 10 million people. It's a mega city. And how many police are there? Right, a couple thousand maybe. How many LA police officers and county sheriffs? I mean, how many? If I were to add them all up, maybe 10,000, right? I mean, you could Google it. How many police in LA, right? But it's not that many when you think that there's 12 million people in LA and how few police there are. Why does that work? Think about that. You got 12 million people living in this massive mega city, and the whole thing kind of runs. Yeah, there's carjackings and there's problems, of course, crime, of course. But fuck, 12 million people are kind of policed by what, 1% of the population? Think about that. Why? How does that work? Because people are obedient for the most part. For the most part, the peasants have been trained to be obedient. You kind of obey the law. Go when the light's green, stop when it's red. Drive on the right side. Don't spit, whatever it is. Whatever it is. So disciplinary power produces subjects that are economically efficient and docile, politically docile, obedient. Now, here's wild shit. One of the most important things that disciplinary power does, not only does it construct subjects who don't know they're constructed, but constructs them who are economically efficient and politically docile. Disciplinary power reverses the field of visibility. Disciplinary power reverses the flow of visibility, the field of visibility. Disciplinary power reverses the flow of visibility. Right? And you think, what the hell does that mean? What does that mean? So one of the major themes of chapter 1, we're not going to get to it tonight, but I'm setting it up, right? One of the major themes of chapter 1, and some of the most fun intellectually Foucault has ever had in his life, right? One of the major themes of chapter 1, as he starts to tell the story about disciplinary power as it emerged in the modern prison system, right? And therefore became a metaphor for Enlightenment society, right? So fun. Is Foucault tells this story, this brilliant, playful story about the end of one discourse that he calls kind of the feudal aristocratic, and the emergence of this new discourse that he calls the Enlightenment. That's part of the reason why that horrific torture of Damien is in the first 4 pages, and then he shifts directly to the boys' home, Enlightenment boys' home. But anyways, so why am I boring you with this? And what does this have to do with the fact that disciplinary power reverses the flow of visibility? We'll talk more about this for sure on Thursday, but just right now to get the idea. So Foucault's talking, and by the way, we've already talked about how from a postmodern point of view, you get these discourses that emerge that have a kind of dominant set of ideas and institutional and material practices and norms, right? Greek philosophy, Roman philosophy, right? Discourse, the emergence of New Testament Christianity kind of discourse, right? Aristocratic feudalism is part of that discourse, and then finally the Enlightenment. Well, right, if you think about what was the discourse, before the Enlightenment? Well, it was some kind of feudalism, aristocratic feudalism, right? I mean, if the Enlightenment starts in the 1600s very loosely, right? Very loosely, right? Well, what was the discourse that existed before that? Well, it was some kind of feudalism, right? It was kind of an aristocratic feudalism fused with a kind of New Testament Christian theology. All right. Well, you think, okay, so in that system, who was visible? Like, who were the only people seen or talked about? And it was just aristocrats, right? It was the wealthy aristocrats were the only people that were visible, right? Prior to the Enlightenment, for the most part, literally. I mean, this is so fun to have fun with, right? It's heartbreaking, but it's kind of fun. Right? Prior to the Enlightenment, prior to the basically 1600s, 1700s, probably 98% of all human beings that had lived, right? Prior to the 1700s, probably 98% of all the human beings that lived were in this kind of weird way, totally invisible. They were born, they lived, and they died. Nobody knows. There were no records kept, right? Very few, right? There's no record of your birth. Maybe if you lived in a little village and the priest wasn't drunk that day, yeah, maybe, he went and recorded your birth and your name, and maybe if people were paying attention, your death was recorded. But the vast majority of humanity, 98% of the fucking people who lived on planet Earth prior to the 1600s were born, lived, and died in total obscurity. Right? No one gave a shit about peasants. Right? All those millions and tens and millions and tens and millions and tens of millions of peasants and working class people, whatever that meant, back in the feudal ages or in the Greek ages. Right? All those tens and tens and tens and millions of people that fucking lived. There's zero history. Why? No one gave a damn about them. They lived, they were born, lived, and died in total obscurity. They were invisible in a playful way. That's what he means by visible and invisible. They are invisible. There were 10,000 people slaughtered at Austerlitz, one of Napoleon's great wars. And by the way, the battle took place. It took place in the Czech Republic. It's about an hour from here. Great Battle of Austerlitz. Right? One of the defining battles of the Napoleon conquest. It's right over in the Czech Republic. It's on the Czech-Austrian border. It's over here about an hour. I love going there. You can drive by it. 10,000 people slaughtered there. No graves. There's no names. There's no record of their deaths. They're just fucking 10,000 fucking peasants that were just slaughtered. Right? They were invisible. They were just mass things. They worked in fields and they died on battle, in great battles of kings. Right? The common person, prior to the Enlightenment, the common person was totally invisible. No one gave a shit. I mean, and again, I don't even mean that in a snarky way. I mean that literally in a literal way. Nobody cared. You weren't aristocratic. You weren't wealthy. You weren't aristocratic. You weren't educated. The only people who were visible were wealthy, aristocratic people. You saw the wealth. You saw the lord, the feudal lord's manor. You saw the castle. That's what you saw. You didn't see the peasants. There's not 10,000 little crosses marking all those people slaughtered at Austerlitz. Disciplinary power reverses visibility. In the Enlightenment, the peasant becomes visible. In the Enlightenment, the peasant becomes visible. Disciplinary power reverses the flow of visibility. Now all of you are visible. And again, you're visible because space and time is controlled and routinized. Space is designed to observe you. The examinations make you visible. I know everything about you. I know everything about you.
Reverses the flow of what?
Visibility.
Visibility. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And again, right? Even now, Google, Facebook, they know you're visible. All your data, your narrative, your data, right? You're visible. Everything. Like I keep telling you, I sit on the board of an artificial intelligence company here, coding company here abroad, one of the best in the fucking world. I sit on their board because they're building AI knowledge systems to replace me, educational systems. And I go to the office and it's no windows, it's a totally secure zone. It's like going to fucking Fort Knox. And you go in there and they're collecting data. They're collecting data. And not only are they collecting data, they're putting it together to do what? To either sell it or to influence what you think and what you do and what you fucking buy. It's stunning. It's terrifying and kind of fascinating. You're visible. Disciplinary power reverses the flow of visibility. And again, we're going to unpack all of this. Now, a couple more points and I'll let you go. Another really important thing, and by the way, this is on the final. This is one of the questions on the final, so I just want to raise it. Right? Disciplinary power, and we're going to unpack this for the next couple of weeks, so don't worry about it. I just want to raise the issue, right? Because it's one of the things that disciplinary does. Disciplinary power is both positive and negative. Disciplinary power is both positive and coercive. Now, when Foucault says that disciplinary power is positive, he doesn't, I guess he means it in, I guess it's good, but he doesn't mean it good in the way we think of good. When Foucault says disciplinary power is both positive and coercive at the same time, what he means is disciplinary power is positive in the sense that it produces aptitude, it produces skills, it produces talents in the subjects it creates. So it's positive. right? And this is kind of related to this whole thing that the Enlightenment turns peasants into lawyers, right? Before the Enlightenment, the vast majority of humanity, all whatever capacities that were there that could be developed were not. They did. No one cared. But the Enlightenment discovered the power, the potential, efficiency, and the value of your body and your mind, and it trains you, it educates you, it builds you. It's positive, right? It produces aptitude. Right? You got skills. And it's coercive in the more normal sense that it has constructed a certain kind of person who is efficient and obedient. So disciplinary power is both productive and coercive. It's both positive and coercive. And then, of course, we'll just finish up with this. As we said earlier, subjectivity, disciplinary power, constructs subjects that are both the objects and vehicles of power, or subjects who are both prisoners in and guard over their own consciousness. All right, fabulous people. Great to see all of you. Hope you're well. And on Thursday, we go deep into chapter 1. My lecture notes are on the Canvas, the course Canvas page, and chapter 1 in my book is a good guide. So have a great day. Miss you guys all very much. I miss seeing you in person. Love you. Sending infinite love, and we'll see you Thursday.
Bye, Donji. Thank you.
Bye, you guys.
Professor. See you Thursday.
Thank you.
Goodbye now.
Yep.